And we're just waiting on the chairman.
Hey, everybody.
Gosh, I haven't seen y'all in a long time. Goodness.
I actually haven't, except the mayor. So I'm walking down the street earlier, but how are y'all?
Good.
Well, we had the chairman, then we lost him.
He's signing on now.
Hello, everybody.
Hey now.
Listen, we got a quorum. Let's call the meeting to order. And for invocation, let's recognize a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Approval of minutes. Looks like we down to acceptance and dedication of rights away, Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a set of minutes for June 17th that was sent to the committee on Friday.
Oh boy, I don't see that on mine, but I'm gonna take you at your word on that.
I read them.
I have a motion on it, Mr. Councilman Shea.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Properly moved and
Second.
seconded on those minutes. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Now down to item
Yes, sir.
E.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one under acceptance dedication is the Hopewell Residential Phase 1. This is a subdivision consisting of 63 lots in the Cainhoy area, and everything is ready, been inspected, constructed, and accepted. So we would recommend those streets be accepted into the city's maintenance system.
All right. Is there a motion out there?
So moved.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded by Councilman Bowden. Any more input? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. E2, Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, sir. That's Twin Lakes Phase 2A. That is on Johns Island. That subdivision consists of 61 lots. And again, everything has been constructed, accepted, and inspected. So we are ready to offer that for acceptance into the city system also.
So moved.
Probably moved in.
Second.
Probably moved in second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it. Item 3, Westgate Phase 1.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Julia to speak on that if you don't mind, sir.
All right, let's go.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Copeland, you're up.
Thank you. Okay, so do you all see the plat in front of you on the
I
screen?
do. I
Okay.
do.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I sent a memo earlier to the committee about this. We have already approved this dedication back in September of 2021. But at the time we approved it, there was supposed to be a formal written easement in place for this line right here that I'm showing you. It's an existing line that runs is it sewer? Michael, are you on here?
I think it's stormwater.
Stormwater, thank you. Sorry, I went blank for a second. So since that first vote, we've been unable to get a formal easement in place with Mr. Bennett. However, his lawyer has assured me that they are working in earnest. However, the West Edge Group would like to go ahead and move forward with this dedication for warranty purposes, obviously. So we wanted to put it back in front of you, in front of this committee, to let you know that with this dedication, this line will be in the form of a prescriptive easement, meaning we would have an equitable right to that line to use it, to access it, to repair it if needed going forward. It just would not be in the form of a formal written easement from Mr. Bennett at this moment. So I just wanted to make sure you all heard that from me and we're comfortable with that going forward. But the plan is,
How can you have an easement when that's not written?
it would be an equitable easement, meaning if it was ever challenged in any way, we would argue that this has been in the ground for over 25 years and it has been used. The plan is eventually, Councilman Shade, to move this and run it along this walkway here and tap into Haygood eventually. So it will not be in perpetuity, but for the moment, and good, Michael Maher and David Humphreys are here as well to answer any questions you might have regarding the details of this.
Okay.
David, do you want to chime in there, or did I explain that accurately?
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I ought to point out, just for the group's benefit, I do a good bit of real estate work for the city of Charleston. I'm here in my capacity as counsel for West Edge Foundation on this. But yeah, prescriptive easement, or maybe even more likely acquiescence or estoppel, or one of the other equitable principles. But that pipe has been there for well over 20 years. Mike Bennett was aware of it. Mike Bennett actually approved, through his LLC, approved the construction of this roadway pursuant to plans and specs that were attached to the agreement whereby he approved it. And those plans and specs showed it tying into that pipe. So we feel strongly that he would be stopped from trying to say that we couldn't use it. Also, when he goes to develop that site, he's going to need to drain the site, and the only feasible ways he could do it would be to continue using that pipe, or to what is going to happen, and that is to tie into the existing drainage improvements that we will make as we proceed. So he's just been a little bit difficult to get to the table, but I think we all feel strongly that if he ever tried to say you can't drain water through that pipe anymore, we would have a choice of many arguments to thwart that.
All right. Mr. Mayhaw, you have any additional comments? Or?
Echoing what David said, we have been working to try to come to an agreement on that, but feel pretty confident and strongly that what's already in place can continue to serve the drainage needs, and that we do intend to continue that drainage down that easement of District Drive all the way to Haygood. But it's just not, the time isn't right now for us to do that, both from the standpoint of other permitting work that we're involved in, but also ongoing collaboration with the Bennett, or the owner of this property, who may seek to reconfigure some of the pavement areas, may seek to do other work that would have required for us to redo the work if we had put it in place already.
Okay, good. What's the pleasure of the committee? We have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Probably moving second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you. Any opposed? Item 4, Mr.
Yes, sir,
Brown.
Mr. Chairman, this is just one of our notifications to SCDOT that the city will accept maintenance of the granite curb and concrete sidewalk there on 14 Cannon, and it's a project at 14 Cannon, excuse me, on Ashley Avenue. So we're just taking that to the committee as we normally do.
Yeah, it comes with the hearty recommendation of Councilman Shaheen. What's the pleasure?
Thank you for making that recommendation.
We have a motion on the floor.
Move for approval.
Properly moved in. Well, these seconds getting kind of tough to come by.
Second.
Okay. Properly moved in second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And
Aye.
now item 5,
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Fountain's going to take this one. This is
Okay, Mr. Fountain.
check valve that Mr. Matt's going to talk about.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can cover this one. This is basically a request from the county where we've been coordinating with the county and the county's design consultant for the improvements on the connection of James Island Expressway into Calhoun at Courtenay that probably everyone is at least generally familiar with. We've been looking at intersection improvements in that area for a long time. Part of the coordination work with the county has been encouraging them to address the flooding situation at that intersection in the surrounding areas. DOT has also been supportive in that discussion. The county said they are basically come around and said they are willing to do it. They've looked at a couple of different options. The current design that they are almost certainly going with will be a single check valve, basically at the extreme western end of Calhoun Street as you go under the bridges. They had looked at an option to check valve kind of all of the smaller pipes coming into that box culvert at some point, because that would be a cheaper approach, potentially, but there end up being so many connections that are known and unknown in the area. It's not practical with how much of Calhoun Street you have to take up. This is the city's preferred approach too. It's a centralized check valve at the end of the box culvert. But the way to do this in order to not restrict the outflow from what's an existing somewhat undersized box culvert is to install basically a junction box with a much larger round pipe section, a 72-inch pipe with a check valve. So it's a very expensive piece of infrastructure. They're asking that the city agree to take over maintenance basically of that system. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a project that has a huge benefit to the city in that area. We have put in here some conditions that we'd ask them to put a trash rack into the system and use a check valve that we are comfortable with and used to maintaining in return for us taking it over, because it'll be a DOT, another one of these DOT permits where DOT asks us to take maintenance because DOT won't want to take maintenance. But it is probably at least a $300,000 check valve. So it's a significant item. I just want to give you some background on it before I brought it to the committee for consideration.
Okay. All right. So does this require a vote? Just for information, or you want us to carry it?
I would like to have an actual motion to allow us to basically agree.
I
We would take it over from DOT.
Second.
Probably moved in second. I think it's a great idea. Councilman Seekins.
Just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Matt, for the explanation. This is really a pretty cool project. As you know, we put a number of check valves in and around the western side of the Calhoun drainage basin. And don't let 72 inches fool you. That is a very large check valve. It's the biggest one that we put in. I think the ones we put at the end of the King Street extension were somewhere in that same size. And because of the way they've negotiated this with us having on the front end the ability to make sure it meets our design and installation, once check valves are in, they don't really take any maintenance. So you may remember we found the one at the end of Rutledge on the harbor side. It had been untouched by human hands for about 40 years. The guy who sold us that check valve, it was the first check valve he ever sold us. And when we replaced it, the one we replaced it with was the last one he sold us before he retired. So, so I think once this gets in, it's really going to be a huge benefit to that whole basin area. It's really going to help with flooding in the Calhoun Street corridor. And we're getting a really nice piece of infrastructure at essentially no cost. So I would highly recommend that we move this on to council and get it going.
All right. You heard the discussion. Call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Temporary encroachments, Mr. Bryan, anything unusual?
No, sir, we've got some fences, some signage and a driveway apron, but other than that, they've all been inspected and we recommend for all of them to be put in place. So we're just passing that as information.
All right, great. I saw a hand, Councilman Shea.
This is more of a question, Mr. Chairman, and to Tom. So how is a driveway apron temporary?
Because it's brick. I mean, all our temporary encroachments, we put those in there because that gives us the ability for our agreement, if they need to be moved or changed for any reason, to make the property owner remove it within 30 days at no cost to the city.
So they're not really temporary.
No, sir, not. I mean, the only really permanent encroachments we have are like building footings or pipes that are buried in the ground. Everything else we had an extensive study several years ago by Janie Borden when she was working with us, and this is how she came up, and everything but those ones I just mentioned, building cornices and foundations and those type things. Everything else is just that it's temporary. It gives us the ability, if for whatever reason we need to have it moved, we can move it at no cost to the city.
So-called temporary.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious when I saw those. I'm like, wait a minute. All right. Thanks for the explanation. Appreciate it.
All right, great. Go to, we don't have any public service updates. So H1, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So H1 is for the Barbary Woods Drainage Improvement Project. This is recommending approval to submit an application to SCORE, the South Carolina Office of Resilience. This is their revolving loan fund. So rather than a traditional grant application, this is actually an application for a low interest loan. They are averaging around 1% on their borrowing, which at the moment is a very good deal. We're asking permission for $3 million. There is the potential on a green infrastructure project such as this that they can convert 25% of the loan into a no match grant. So that is part of our request, of course, in the application. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So moved.
Properly moved, and we have a second on here.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number one, I think that's a great idea to do that. We could use something like that on the last meeting I just got off in real estate. But anyway, all in favor.
A 1% loan. That's not bad.
Yeah, it can be converted to a grant, part of it. Anyway. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The ayes have. H2, Long Branch Creek. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the Long Branch Creek component of the Long Branch Creek / Lake Dotter or Glen McConnell project. This is recommending approval to submit an application to the NOAA Transformational Habitat Restoration and Coastal Resilience Grants. This is a partnership style grant with NOAA where you basically partner with them to progress a project. We are applying for the design and permitting aspect of the entirety of the creek component, which, as we've talked about in the past, is upgrades potentially under Highway 17, under the Greenway,
right,
but some other crossing points, and a significant amount of ecological improvement, bringing back sort of that active stream and wetland function that's in that area partially for the purpose of ecological enhancement and partially for the purpose of reducing the flooding that occurs throughout that basin. We think this is a good fit for the NOAA partnership. We've had a lot of discussions in the past on this basin with NOAA because they have interest in the ecological aspects of this creek. This is a 50-50 match. Again, we're asking for design funding due to the scale of the project. The grant application is slightly more oriented towards construction projects, but they do allow for design projects. 1.5 million from NOAA, 1.5 million from the existing allocation of the drainage fund is our current request.
All right. Again, what's the pleasure? You heard the information. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Properly moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? H3, Concord Street Pump Station upfit. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this one is a slightly more traditional grant application. This is recommending approval to submit an application to SCRIA. This is the ARPA infrastructure money that was allocated about $900 million total from the state legislature down into SCRIA. Out of that, just over 400 million is eligible for basically large scale stormwater projects, technically it's stormwater, water, or wastewater projects for larger communities such as Charleston. We are requesting this for the Concord Street Pump Station outfit. We're requesting the maximum ask, which is what the agencies have been encouraging applicants to be competitive to request. That's a $10 million grant application on a 25-75 match with city funds of $3.3 million roughly coming from the existing allocation in the drainage fund for the project. This is important to note that this entire project is currently drainage funded. So this would be a way to reallocate some funds out of a pretty flexible funding source for us on other project work.
Move for approval.
Second.
Properly moved and second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? I didn't think it'd be too many discussions on that one. H4, Central Park Road Drainage Improvement. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the Central Park Drainage Improvements, which we've also called Wamba area in the past. This is recommending approval of our work authorization under our existing AECOM Stormwater Program Manager contract. authorization number 9. Each of those is a standalone project authorization. They're not all related to this particular project area. As for professional services to design and permit project areas 1 and 2. It's $433,992. That's available within the existing allocation for the drainage fund for the project.
All right, good. Now, Councilman Gregory's on here. I'd already have a motion for approval on this.
I move for approval.
Second.
I'll put moved second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5, Cooper Jackson. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is Cooper Jackson, the kind of the upper east side area of the peninsula. This is recommending approval of work authorization number 10 on that same stormwater program manager contract with AECOM for the professional services to do, again, design and permitting of the drainage improvements, phases 1 through 3, which is all of the currently identified phases for that project work. That's $667,156. This is being funded out of the Cooper River Bridge TIF money that has already been allocated out of the last borrowing for drainage improvements within that basin.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you for the seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it. Item 6, Lee Street emergency repair. Mr. Fountain.
Yep, thank you. So this is, again, recommending approval for an after the fact approval for the emergency repair work that was completed to repair a 42-inch collapsed RCP pipe over at Lee Street and America Street by the South Carolina State Extension Building. We were doing some cleaning and retrofitting throughout the whole kind of east side neighborhood. We identified a fully collapsed pipe in this area that was causing some significant drainage issues. BNC Land Development did the work, $62,000 to replace the collapsed pipe underneath the roadway in this area. We actually expect to see a pretty significant improvement to drainage on that corridor on Lee Street from this, because it was definitely almost completely blocked. So I think this ended up, well, being an emergency repair will probably be a pretty big benefit to the community in the short run until we can get that improvement project designed and built as well.
Move for approval.
I'll move then seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, on my agenda, I don't see any miscellaneous business or executive session.
I think that
Councilmember-
and Cleveland should have been on this meeting to see how a meeting really is run, Mr. Chairman.
We got like
Shots fired.
no. Listen, I am not shooting any shots because I know my day in the sun will come. Councilmember Pell, you have
I will have you know we got through that first page of the real estate agenda in record time.
we did, man.
But as Gamecocks, we know what a second half collapse looks like.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, here
So-
we go. Here we
Well,
go.
I'm just
There's been
getting
a culture
ourselves
change.
ready. I'm just getting ourselves ready for the season. Mr. Chairman, I had a request for the next meeting, or maybe the next meeting after that, whenever it's the best opportunity to do this. There's been, a working group of environmental groups, historic preservation groups, industry groups that have been convening sort of informally to discuss potential changes to our slab on grade regulations to basically prevent building structures really low to the ground in really flood-prone areas.
Right.
I've recommended to that group, and I think several of us have talked with these same folks over the
Right.
years.
Right.
A lot of this kind of got slowed down with COVID stuff and everything, but I think it might be a good opportunity to sort of have this group kind of show its work at an upcoming Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting, to sort of just as a discussion item, not approving anything, no ordinances have been drafted or anything of that nature, just to kind of, bring this to public light a little bit, explain what, they've been working on, get a little bit of guidance from us, and maybe, get something in motion. I'm told that there's a shocking amount of, common ground here between these groups that you wouldn't perhaps necessarily think would always see eye to eye together. And this is a really good opportunity for us to respond to a lot of the constituent calls that we've heard over the years about, placing more restrictions on development in poor areas and,
Right.
and preventing bad situations from getting worse. So I just wanted to make that request, kind of give everybody a little sneak peek of what's to come and see if we could get this moving forward at the committee level.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, but I mean, Mr. Mayor and Peter and Mike, all of you all, Mr. Fountain, we did the freeboard +2. So new construction, even if it's on grade, it's still got to have that elevation of freeboard +2, which is, am I right, being right around 15 and a half feet?
Well, it depends on the
Yeah, the
flood
grade of the land and all of that, right?
that you're in, but yeah, for new construction, you're right. But Councilmember Appel is correct. I've heard we made some real good progress with,
Right.
this building on grade requirements, and I think we're close, Councilmember Appel, to drafting an ordinance and bringing it forward to this committee. Is that right? Either Julia or Dale Morris, I see y'all online.
Drafting an ordinance, again, what we wanted, I think, we discussed as a group, so a group that we've been meeting for the last 3 months at the urging of some members of council. We reached a consensus that we should try to move forward and draft an ordinance here, but there are things to explore within the group as well as with city council and its appetite for this kind of ordinance. So we would recommend bringing this before the committee so you can hear where we are and what we have developed as a consensus recommendation, and let you all work your magic on that. Matt Fountain, stormwater planning have been part of these discussions, as well as some environmental groups, the home builders, the realtors, and Historic Charleston Foundation. So there's a consensus with this group to move forward, and we would like you all to consider that at the appropriate time.
I'm fine with putting it on the agenda, but any other input? Councilman Shea.
Not on that subject, but if we can shift to another question.
Sure, that's fine.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we could put on our agenda for next meeting, our ongoing issue with debris pickup. Matt Althoff has done a wonderful job. He's been very responsive. I know that there are several issues that are dictating this problem, but I think we owe it to our constituents to get an update on what is going on with the constant delays on debris pickup. I know that we had a discussion about trying to figure out how to address some of these issues, but with limiting the size of debris, and we talked about maybe alternating, but maybe if we can get Matt to come on board at our September meeting, that would be very beneficial.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Shea, just to give you guys a quick update, we had a really good week last week. We actually only had to use one of our contractors to help us run one ASL route due to ASL being down. So that was one garbage route, but we got about 90% of everything done last week, and Matt thinks we're going to be everything on time this week. So I think we may have turned the corner through the summer, but we'll be glad to bring an update. And your point also, we need to get back to the presentation we made earlier this summer regarding limits and those things, so we can get that passed to help us approve that.
Yeah, so if we just bring that to a full discussion, Mr. Chairman, put it on the agenda for September.
You'll make it happen.
Okay.
Mr. Fountain,
Ryan.
one last question, Mr. Fountain. On got a pay scale thing, and one of your name came up during a HR meeting. Did our HR people reach out to you when it came to some of the people in the ditch digging crew and taking it up to $15 an hour? Did anybody reach out to you since last week?
We've been in discussion with Ryan Landry on what we can do for stormwater positions for quite some time, Mr. Chairman. I think that's something that certainly we acknowledge is a challenge.
Right. Councilman Bowden, I see your hand. You on mute. Good.
While we're on that, something that I just kind of want to put on everybody's radar, because it really hasn't been discussed in a while. We had a really terrible storm out here, and since our last meeting on Shadow Moss, and just really put back to the front of people's minds the flooding that occurs out here. I had a great discussion with Matt, and it's apparent to me that in addition to pay, we've got to give department heads more flexibility with what they do with their employees. And I recognize that's not entirely this committee. His just happens to fall under our purview. So in addition to putting back on the agenda what we do about flooding in outer West Ashley, I just wanted to make that suggestion that it's not entirely money. I mean, we'll never keep track with the private sector, but there are other things we can do in terms of flexibility. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up, Chairman Waring, and I heard some grant talk that may free up some money, and I've got some thoughts about that money.
Okay. All right. I mean, that flexibility piece, I'd like to hear more about that. But anyway, Mr. Mayor, you had a hand up? Mr.
No,
Mayor?
sir.
Oh,
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.